Hello, Seaworthy community. We are here today with KM, who is kind and gracious enough to give us some time around her experience. Welcome, KM. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to use initials. Oh, okay. Didn't know that, so that's fine.
So today's purpose is for these testimonials are a chance for people to hear what experiences are like here, and it's so much more powerful to hear from someone who's had the experience rather than the doctor for lots of reasons. Even in that setting, your story is so remarkable because when we met, it was only June of last year.
Yes, I guess it was. It hasn't been a year.
Seems like a long time, but
it hasn't been a year.
Hasn't even been a year. And I guess to prime the pump a little, do you think it's accurate to say at that time that long COVID is part of what was going on?
I think it was, but I think it probably was a precondition because I had quite a few very serious bronchitis issues, and I would say I was even sicker with one of those bronchitis episodes than I was with either of my two COVIDs. And so I really just was starting to go downhill without even really realizing it, thinking it was sort of a typical thing because I am getting older. So so it kind of helped spur the fact that I just couldn't recover. And then the issue or the time that really put me into your office was that after having had the second COVID, that was in January, February, March, April, May. 4 months later, my friend, when I said, I'm really sick and I need you to take me to the COVID testing site, my friend said, when she looked at me, she said, no, we're not taking you to the COVID testing site. We're taking you to the emergency room. So I went to the emergency room and I spent the night in the hospital, and I was really bad. And the only thing they could find was basically the rhinovirus, which is a cold. And so it became obvious to me that, even though I take care of myself and stuff, that the immune system was shot, something was wrong. And over a good many years living in Homer, I have friends that have used your services. And so I knew that it was time. I had great doctors, and that's one of the things that I like about this whole thing is that you guys work together. It's like having the full package, and because you need each of you. And I kind of knew that, but I needed something that really put me down and said, listen, you need another section to put with your trying to maintain your health.
I feel so lucky that I'm a family practice MD and an employee of the hospital, and myself and the other primary care doctors and all the outpatient medical providers share the same electronic health record. And so getting to be part of that ecosystem is such a privilege in my career that I never would have expected, because so many functional medicine doctors are sort of solitary creatures. So this is a really amazing thing that I get to do here.
Well, and I think that's Homer. I think the wellness community and the community that deals with things that aren't necessarily traditional medicine, everybody is very accepting in the medical community, I think, in this town, which I'm not doing an advertisement for Homer, but I mean it really. And so I'm glad to see that you feel the same way as a doctor.
Yeah, my dad was a dentist, and he just always had this imperative that the reason he existed was for his patients to thrive and to put himself out of business, which was such a remarkable aspect of him. And so for me, the idea that just the service focus, that if we're all interconnected and sharing the same electronic health record and we all respect one another as medical providers, it can sound kind of silly or clichéic, but it's true. Patients do better. That's the point. And so that's what I love the most about getting to be embedded.
Well, and along those same lines, one of the things that, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but we discovered the fact that I was almost toxic to vitamin D. And it's, I would tell the traditional doctor, my doctors, well, what supplements I'm taking, D and stuff. And in Alaska, we do pay attention to vitamin D. And one of the things sometimes you shouldn't do is just listen to your friends and neighbors and read things, because, as I was not dealing with any of this stuff for quite a few years, it was like, oh, you're not taking enough vitamin D. Okay, wow, I'm going to throw another one in. And so one of the things that I think has happened is that you've uncovered that part of the reason I was feeling icky was because I had too much vitamin D. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is I'm very dry, and my eye doctor here was giving me some fish oil, but it was with vitamin D. But you were able to give me back some fish oil that I need because my eyes are getting less dry. Mm-hmm. So, and then to top it all off, the fact that we talked about thyroid, and I don't really need, as you said, medication from the blood work and stuff, but I'm a little low. And so taking that supplement, I think, has added to my overall well-being. And so these are things that just sometimes slip through the cracks, and they're nebulous, some of it. So don't always read and listen to your friends and neighbor. Come to somebody who actually has a little more training and knowledge.
That's a rule I follow too, and I love my friends and neighbors. They're not quite the same as our trained team members.
Yeah.
For our folks that are watching and learning from this, I wanted to share what I think was the watershed moment for you, which is that visit 1 in July of last year. We said, okay, you had a little fatigue coming into all of this, and then you had this clear-eyed moment. I don't want to go down this track. Something needs to get corrected in my immune system. And we identified that there were what are called adrenal hormones, DHEA and cortisol, involved in low energy. There was a thyroid optimization issue that didn't warrant thyroid hormone, but what we would call sensitization to thyroid hormone with supplementation, professional grade supplements. And then tuning up sleep. So we did some sleep tune-up. And I looked at your notes, and what was so fun to me is you already had some energy back when we added the COVID reversal supplements. By the end of the month, energy was improving with zinc, quercetin, and reishi mushroom, along with some other things. And then by October, your energy was normal. And I hear about folks in town, or I'll meet them, and they say they've never gotten their energy back after that whole string of events that tipped them over, including a couple episodes of COVID. And so I was so happy that you didn't go down that sort of puzzled chronic disability path. That's probably the most poignant reason for me. I want to get the word out that there's non-drug strategies for this.
Oh, absolutely. And actually, again, because I read and am interested, I added a few things on my own years, thinking it would, because you read and say, this will help your fatigue, this will help your fatigue. And actually, I'm no longer using it, because all the other stuff has brought me up. And what is also nice is you aren't always just adding things. Sometimes you're taking it away because it's unnecessary. And just like that little group of supplements for benefiting from getting rid of some long COVID or getting rid of some of this other things, that I still can take them. Like if I'm traveling when it's going to be a little more of a possible problem. And so that is kind of a nice thing to know, is that you can take things away, and then you can, some of them are gone, and then some of them you just bring back when it is appropriate.
Well, I know you'll correct me if I have this wrong, but part of what I remember and part of what I've learned is that each person's functional medicine plan is a tailored jacket made just for them. And so characteristics of yours I've noted is that you're attentive to detail. And I think when we talked first, you said you were receptive to supplementation, but you preferred a smaller supplement footprint. And I would say your style has borne out, because when we do follow-up visits, the question we ask ourselves is this necessary or not anymore? And I meet folks who have always added to their supplement plan, but it's like people who have lots of manila folders, but they've never purged.
Yeah. Yes, good analogy. Yes.
And so that vigilance and housekeeping around the supplement plan is another nice aspect of your plan that we quickly said, okay, the resistance, resilience, and recovery supplements tuned up the immune disruption, oxidative stress, and inflammation that was keeping you trapped. Your lifestyle came around, and then you got back to normal, and then those things became modular for you. You can deploy them when you want to and not when you don't need to. So I think there's a real beauty in that too, that each person's plan is for them.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that everybody should just realize that not only is it your own personal plan, but you have the ability to participate. That's a nice thing I've always felt when I've come in to see you, is that I'm not just standing there getting orders and saying, yes, I will do this, sir. But it's a thing where we work back and forth, and what works, what doesn't work, and suggestions and stuff. And so I feel like it's mine, and I have now embraced it.
Agency, that's a beautiful word.
Oh, is that what we use?
Well, I love that we're the agent of our own well-being, and then we go to who we trust for advice or direction or to get an objective view. But agency is it basically defines functional medicine patients, because these are not folks who are inactive, watching TV reruns, smoking Marlboros all day and living on donuts. I mean, these are folks who are engaged and leaning in and curious about how to be healthy, and nonetheless, there's some twists and turns that they benefit from an objective view about. I'm really glad you brought up vitamin D. Basically, every adult in Alaska is vitamin D deficient until proven otherwise, because we don't get the skin exposure to make the D in our skin. But because it's a fat-soluble vitamin, it's really tricky how much builds up in the body. And so we can end up with too much of a good thing. And a big study in Scandinavia that the Institute for Functional Medicine cites noted that some of the cancer preventive and immunosupportive benefits of vitamin D fall off after 70 nanograms per mil in the blood. And when people get up over 100, I've just seen it enough now that around or over 100, they feel icky, and it's because it's affecting genetic expression. So it's really nice to be able to correct that and get people tuned up.
Well, and I also think, I'm very fortunate that we hit a stride, and it surprised me. It hasn't been a year, and yet people shouldn't necessarily give up. Because I would assume that certain things are more difficult to handle than others, and I deal with my weight, and I keep chipping away at it, and it just doesn't work as quickly as this does. But I'm not going to give up.
Yeah.
In other words, and that's one of the things I think I would like to express, is that it's something that you really don't want to give up on, and it is important to keep it going.
Thank you for that. The other person that has done a testimonial also this week, it was the 4-year mark where we had a breakthrough.
Oh, my goodness.
That person's message was that I and Seaworthy never gave up. And we hit these junctures where the person said, wow, I'm so frustrated. And they had enough improvement in certain domains that there was proof of concept for them. But the things that person wanted to improve the most, their mood, was stuck. And so then sometimes functional medicine testing is the game changer. So for this person, we did genetic testing to see what their genetics showed for their mood. And for you, it's worth noting, a 6-part thyroid panel helped us identify the need for a little optimization there. And a test of adrenal and related sex hormones that are part of energy called a Dutch Plus was helpful too. So you did go for it. You really dove in and rounded up the data.
Well, and the other thing that I've discovered, because we talking about one of the things that we worked on was sleep, and although initially I did a couple of things and it helped, I haven't really dealt with any of that for quite a few months, because as other things were getting better, and particularly with my energy back, getting out, doing more exercise, I slept better. But the other thing that helped is you gave me a handout, and with a lot of behavioral things that one can do. And although you don't always want to change your behavior, I reread that listing, and I really find now that I turn off the TV screen, whether it's movies or whether it's TV or what it is, earlier in the evening, it helps me to sleep better. That with having more energy to get out and do things out of doors. So, that it's not just supplements. You give us little handouts to read if we would read them.
The suggestions for better sleep from
Yes.
the Institute for Functional Medicine.
Yes, yes.
Well, your story is such a tour de force through so many important things. My last question for you would be, is there anything you'd want somebody to know about what happens at Seaworthy that doesn't happen in other settings, as kind of a way to wrap up, or anything you wanted to share today as you were getting ready for this that we didn't get to talk about?
Well, I would suggest that people suggest this to everyone. I have been talking about coming here to some of my friends, and they've come much sooner. And that's one reason why I knew about it. But, word of mouth really counts, and you never know when it will fall on the right ears at the right time. So I think that is something I would want to pass on to people, is that to keep it going. But the other thing is that it is a comfortable location, and it is oftentimes a discussion point, and as much as with traditional medicine, you have certain things you do. And so if you have a concern because you have been uncomfortable in a more traditional medical, I think it's a little different coming into this setting.
Different feel, maybe? Different
feel, yeah. So I would not say no just because I don't like to go to the doctor.
I would echo that the folks that are seen in this setting often feel like it creates a safe space or a safe harbor, even if they're not historically really keen on being in medical settings. I was just sitting here reflecting. I feel like it's such a privilege to talk to you and such a privilege to do this. And my motive for it was the concern that if we didn't get the word out, there would be people not served. But also, I thought about my dad again, who was my hero in so many ways. And he had this big project in Kalispell, Montana called Lawrence Park. So kind of from age 50 to age 80, he was the head of the Friends of Lawrence Park, and it was this overrun park that was on the verge of being used for something else. And now it's got 2 softball fields and a pavilion and a path to walk by the Flathead River and a bridge over the river and nature trails and stuff like that. And he was asked to be interviewed by the paper, and he said, "No, I don't want to do that." And the reporter said, "Well, if you get interviewed, it's going to help the park." And he said, "Okay, I'll do it." And he had kind of a Depression era sentiment around, like, kind of keep your head down, don't get in the limelight. And I think that the importance of what we're doing today is that it doesn't necessarily come naturally to me, but I really believe in creating this space to capture these testimonials, because I see and meet the folks who aren't getting their fatigue or their imbalances or their D-level or their COVID downstream implications treated. And so I genuinely just feel a sense of thankfulness about your willingness to put your story out there, because it's going to help people.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why I felt very comfortable doing this, is because I know, as I'm coming up on another birthday here in about a month, and mobility is everything. And if you don't feel like doing it, you're not going to do it. And it is mobility. It's not just getting out and skiing or snowshoeing or paddleboarding. It is just moving, going and taking a walk, or going to the grocery store and walking around the grocery store. And so it's such a delight to be in a position to feel that much better, because I was plugging through because I knew how important outside or being mobile was, but it was getting harder and harder. So yes, everybody should take a real step. And I think I'm on Medicare. I'm that old. So it's covered. And so should be an issue for someone who's a little older. And I think that's the older community tends to start looking at some of this maybe faster than the youth. But there might be reasons why somebody that's 50 ought to come.
Well, awesome. And here it is, a beautiful day out there. So I presume when you wrap this up, you get to go do something cool out in the sunshine, huh?
I'm going to walk around town because I've got a couple meetings and I have to go shopping. So I live urban, so I get to walk around town.
KM, thanks again. Really appreciate it. Have a great day.
And thank you for suggesting this for me.
I appreciate the positive feedback.